The Golden Gate Bridge.
Just those names, they kind of like conjure up a dream, don't they?
Let's be real for a second.
Anyone who has even like thought about renting an apartment there knows
Yeah.
that dream comes with like a hefty
Oh, yeah.
price tag.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking about rent here. Oh, no. We're diving into the real cost of living in this like tech-driven paradise grocery area.
Transport, even just existing.
Yeah, yeah.
And, we know you're particularly interested in like the real nitty-gritty of Bay Area living. So think of this deep dive as like your own personal tour guide to the numbers.
Yeah.
So let's just rip off a Band-Aid.
Now talk housing, shall we?
Let's do it.
In San Francisco, the median rent for a one-bedroom apartment is hovering around a cool $3,200 a month.
Okay.
Two-bedroom. You're looking at over $4,500.
Wow.
To put that in perspective, that's more than double the national average.
Imagine 2/3 of your income gone just on rent.
Yeah, you're right to point that out. It's a staggering figure. And I think what's really fascinating here is that it all goes back to that very simple principle of supply and demand.
Right.
Except in this case, demand is absolutely exploding, leaving supply in the dust. So the Bay Area's tech boom acted like this giant magnet pulling in this massive wave of like highly paid tech workers.
Right.
But with limited space to build new housing, those rents.
They've been on a one-way trip to the stratosphere.
It's like trying to squeeze a watermelon into a champagne flute.
Exactly.
And it's not just San Francisco, right? Oakland is a bit gentler on the wallet.
But we're still talking $2,400 for a one-bedroom.
Right.
And don't even get me started on buying a place almost $1.4 million for a median-priced house in San Francisco. I need to lie down after just saying that.
It does make you wonder how anyone manages. I've even heard stories of people choosing to live further out, way out in the East Bay or even Sacramento.
Wow.
Just to find a place they can afford.
Wow, talk about a commute. That's practically moving to another state.
Exactly. And that's a trend we're seeing more and more of the rise of the super commute.
Oh, God.
Imagine spending 2 to 3 hours each way just getting to and from work every day. That's 2 to 3 hours less you have for sleep.
Family hobbies, you name it. And then there's the costs, gas train fares, vehicle maintenance, all eating into your budget. So the real question becomes, is that trade-off truly worth it?
Right.
It impacts your whole life, not just your bank account.
You're totally right. It's like a hidden cost that doesn't show up on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
But, okay, let's say you figured out the whole housing situation you're settled in.
But your stomach starts to rumble. Now, I've heard the Bay Area has this incredible food scene.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm guessing those gourmet meals don't come cheap either, do they?
And what about just, basic groceries?
Yeah.
We're talking milk, eggs, bread, the essentials. What do those cost in this land of $5 lattes?
Well, get ready to open your wallet a little wider because a gallon of milk could set you back $5. And eggs, forget about it. You're looking at $6 a dozen. Even a simple bowl of cereal seems like a luxury at those prices.
$6 for eggs. It's serious when even basic groceries require a small loan.
It's a great example of what I like to call the Bay Area premium.
The Bay Area premium.
Everything just seems to have this invisible markup attached to it.
So what's the deal with this Bay Area premium? Is it just because everyone there is like rolling in tech money?
That's part of it for sure. But there are other factors at play too. A big one is transportation.
Okay.
Getting goods into the Bay Area isn't cheap. You've got fuel costs, tolls, and the overall expense of moving things around.
Right.
And then there's this commitment to local sourcing and fair wages, which, while admirable, do contribute to higher prices.
But there's also this undeniable expectation of quality.
And a willingness to pay for it that just permeates the Bay Area culture.
So it's like a perfect storm of factors, all pushing prices skyward.
Yeah.
And it's not just the grocery store, right? We got to talk about those famous Bay Area restaurants. I'm picturing myself at a hip cafe sipping on a lavender latte.
But suddenly I'm worried about how much that avocado toast is going to cost me.
Yeah, dining out in the Bay Area can be quite the experience, both for your taste buds and your bank account.
I bet.
We're talking $15-20 per person for a casual meal lunch creeping towards $25 and a nice dinner.
Yeah.
Get ready to shell out anywhere from $60 to $100 easily.
Okay, so let me get this straight. To truly experience the Bay Area's food scene,
You better be prepared to part with some serious cash.
Yeah.
But here's the real question. Is it actually sustainable to live like that in the long term?
Can people really maintain those spending habits day in and day out?
Or are they constantly having to make these like tough choices about where their money goes?
It's a valid question. It's one thing to splurge every now and then, but when you're staring down the barrel of a $5 gallon of milk and a $25 sandwich, it really makes you wonder how much of this lifestyle is truly sustainable.
And what kind of impact does that have on people's lives and choices?
Right, like are you forced to choose between having a social life and making rent? That's a tough call.
Okay, so we've covered housing and food, two pretty major expenses. But let's be real. You can't just teleport between your shoebox apartment and the overpriced organic market, can you? You've got to get around somehow.
And anyone who's even heard of the Bay Area knows about the legendary traffic.
Oh, absolutely. The Bay Area traffic is practically its own ecosystem.
And when you're paying, wait for it, $5 to $6 per gallon for gas.
Ouch.
Plus, dropping another $1,500 to $2,000 a year on car insurance. I imagine those costs add up faster than you can say Silicon Valley.
So with all that said, you'd think public transportation would be the obvious choice.
Right.
Hop on a train, breeze past the gridlock, save some money.
Everyone wins, right?
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
And in a lot of ways, it is a more appealing option.
There's always a but, isn't there?
There is. You see, even public transport comes with its own set of costs.
Okay.
A monthly BART pass, for example, will set you back anywhere from $100 to $200 depending on your route. That's not exactly chump change either.
Wow, $200 a month. So even with public transportation, you're still shelling out a significant chunk of change just to get around. That's wild.
And it's not like you can always rely solely on BART, can you?
Right.
There are going to be times when you need to grab a ride share or hop on a bus, which, you guessed, it adds to the overall cost. It makes you wonder.
It does make you wonder, is the Bay Area's transportation infrastructure truly equipped to handle its own growth?
And if it's not keeping pace, what does that mean for the people who have no choice but to navigate this daily obstacle course?
Food for a thought, wouldn't you say?
It's like, no matter where you turn, there's another expense waiting to, take a bite out of your budget.
Yeah.
It's enough to make you want to move into a van down by the, well, probably not down by the beach, because I'm guessing those beachside parking spots aren't cheap either.
You'd be surprised. You might find a few folks living the van life out there, trying to hack the system. But you're right, even that comes with its own set of costs and challenges.
Exactly. It's like the Bay Area cost of living is a game of whack-a-mole. You solve one problem.
And another one pops up. Speaking of unexpected expenses.
Let's talk about those hidden costs that can really sneak up on you, like utilities.
Ah, yes. The silent budget killers.
Okay, so I'm picturing myself in my very extensive Bay Area apartment lights are on.
I'm screaming my favorite show.
Yeah.
How much damage am I doing to my wallet per month just for existing in this space?
We'll get ready for this. We're talking about an average of $150 to $300 per month for basic utilities like electricity, water, and internet.
$300 a month?
For utilities.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So even if I never left my apartment, no fancy dinners, no spontaneous weekend getaways, I'd still be shelling out a significant chunk of change just to keep the lights on and the Wi-Fi humming.
That's the reality, unfortunately. And what makes it even more mind-boggling is that even with those sky-high utility bills...
Parts of the Bay Area still experience rolling blackouts during heat waves. It's like something out of a dystopian novel.
Wait, seriously? They're paying a premium for unreliable service.
Talk about adding insult to injury. You'd think that with all the innovation and wealth concentrated in the Bay Area, they'd have figured out a way to keep the lights on.
It really highlights the challenges the region faces in terms of infrastructure. We're talking about a system that was designed decades ago, struggling to keep pace with the demands of a rapidly growing population and a tech-driven world. It's not just about inconvenience, it's a stark reminder of the potential vulnerabilities that come with rapid growth and aging infrastructure.
It's like trying to run the latest software on a computer from the Stone Age. You're bound to run into some problems.
For sure.
And if housing, food, transportation, and utilities weren't enough to worry about.
There's another major expense looming over every Bay Area resident's head: healthcare.
Ah, yes, healthcare, the perennial elephant in the room no matter where you live in the U.S.
Right. But I have to imagine that in a place like the Bay Area with its high cost of living, healthcare expenses become even more daunting. It's like trying to climb Mount Everest with a backpack full of rocks.
You're absolutely right. The high cost of living in the Bay Area has this kind of ripple effect on everything.
Right.
And healthcare is no exception. It's already a significant expense for most Americans. But in the Bay Area, it can feel like just breathing the air costs extra.
So paint me a picture. Let's say you're a young professional, maybe working for a startup or even as a freelancer, part of the ever-growing gig economy that's become synonymous with the Bay Area.
What kind of healthcare landscape are you facing?
Well, for those who aren't fortunate enough to have comprehensive coverage through their employers,
Right.
and that's increasingly common in the world of startups and gig work,
Right.
the private health insurance market can be a real shock to the system.
Yeah.
We're talking monthly premiums that can easily exceed $500 per person
$500 a month.
just for the privilege of seeing a doctor when you need to.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So not only are you paying San Francisco rent prices, but you're also getting hit with these kinds of healthcare costs on top of everything else.
That's enough to make anyone want to take up yoga and meditation full time.
It definitely puts immense pressure on individuals and families who are already stretching their budgets thin.
Yeah.
And it reflects, I think, a broader trend in the U.S. healthcare system.
But it's amplified in a place like the Bay Area where the cost of living is already so high. It's like shining a spotlight on these inequalities and challenges that many people face when it comes to accessing affordable and quality healthcare.
Okay, so we've painted a pretty stark picture here.
Yeah.
The Bay Area sounds amazing on paper, beautiful scenery,
Vibrant culture.
incredible job opportunities. But the reality is,
It comes at a steep price. And we're not just talking about the sticker shock of rent.
or the occasional avocado toast splurge.
Right.
We're talking about a cost of living that permeates every aspect of your life.
Right.
From the moment you wake up to the moment you try to fall asleep, probably worrying about how you're going to make ends meet.
It's a constant balancing act.
Right.
And it begs the question, is the Bay Area approaching a tipping point?
Can it maintain its identity as this hub of innovation and culture while grappling with these ever-increasing cost of living challenges?
It does make you wonder if the very things that make the Bay Area so desirable are also the things that are making it increasingly out of reach for so many. It really makes you wonder, is it even possible to make it in the Bay Area without being like a tech millionaire?
Or are you destined to live on a diet of instant ramen and dreams?
It's a question a lot of people are grappling with.
Right.
And while there's no easy answer, our research did uncover some, I guess you could say, creative strategies that people are using to navigate the Bay Area's cost of living.
Okay, so spill the beans. What kind of life hacks are we talking about? Give me hope.
Well, one trend we're seeing is this rise of co-living spaces. It's basically like dorm life for adults, but with better amenities, hopefully.
So instead of shelling out thousands of dollars for a tiny studio apartment, you're basically throwing it back to your college days and splitting the rent with a bunch of roommates.
Exactly. It's not for everyone, of course.
Right.
You have to be comfortable with sacrificing some privacy and maybe navigating some quirky roommate dynamics.
Sure.
But for those who value affordability and community, it can be a game changer.
I can see that. Plus, maybe you'll get lucky and end up living with a gourmet chef who can whip up some, affordable, delicious meals.
It's all about finding the silver lining. But what about those who aren't quite ready to embrace the whole communal living thing? Any other tricks up your sleeve?
Absolutely. Another strategy is to get strategic about your location.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about moving further out to the suburbs, although that's certainly an option.
Some people are finding these hidden gems in less trendy neighborhoods within the Bay Area itself.
Oh, interesting.
Places like Richmond and Hayward, for example.
Offer a lower cost of living without requiring a soul-crushing commute.
Okay, so it's about weighing those priorities.
Right.
Are you willing to sacrifice a bit of convenience or trendiness for a little more breathing room in your budget? It's a personal decision for sure. Exactly.
It's about defining what's important to you and finding that sweet spot between your desired lifestyle and your financial reality. There's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
And hey, who knows, maybe living in a less hyped neighborhood helps you discover some hidden culinary gems too.
Ooh, like a hole-in-the-wall taco truck with lines around the block.
Exactly.
I'm all about that. But seriously, it sounds like surviving the Bay Area cost of living is all about being adaptable, resourceful, and maybe a little bit lucky.
That's a great way to put it. It's about being open to different ways of living, thinking outside the box,
Right.
and perhaps embracing a bit of a DIY ethos.
So what does this all mean for our listener? If you're sitting there with stars in your eyes, dreaming of making it big in the Bay Area,
What's the takeaway message?
well, I think the most important thing is to go in with your eyes wide open.
Okay.
The Bay Area is a place of incredible opportunity, but it's also a place of some pretty intense challenges.
For sure.
It's not for the faint of heart, and it's certainly not for the financially fragile.
Right.
It demands careful planning, a bit of a hustler spirit,
Yeah.
and a willingness to make trade-offs.
Right. It's like that saying, you can make it there, you can make it anywhere.
Yeah.
But in the case of the Bay Area, it might also be true that if you can make it anywhere else, you might want to consider that option too.
It's a balancing act, that's for sure. And ultimately, the decision of whether or not to take the plunge is a deeply personal one.
Yeah.
But what's clear is that the Bay Area is at a crossroads.
How it chooses to address these cost of living challenges will determine not just its own future, but could also have ripple effects far beyond its borders.
So much to think about. It's like the Bay Area itself, full of contradictions, challenges, and yet an undeniable allure. Well, listeners, we've unpacked the numbers, explored the challenges, and even uncovered a few survival tips along the way. But now we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the Bay Area's cost of living puzzle? Have you experienced the sticker shock firsthand, or are you busy planning your own Bay Area adventure?